This is very far, so far that I think it's the time is now about 5:30 in the morning. So good morning to Alyssa Carpenter. You are social worker in Western Arctic Youth Collective. Why is Arctic living problematic for your youths?
Uvlami, so the question is, why is living in the Arctic a problem for youth?
Yes, in White House, or you can give us the report you will do.
Sure. So I live in Whitehorse, Yukon. It is in one of the 3 territories in what is called Canada. As a youth who grew up in an Arctic community in the Northwest Territories, what I've already heard and relate to is young people leave for opportunity. A lot of us are encouraged to pursue education, as our previous family has also really been impacted by forms of colonization and residential school that existed until I was a child. I'm someone who attended a day school in what is called Canada here as well, within my home territory of the Northwest Territories. But one big reason why I left was I was really encouraged to become educated. And I did have to leave my community, even though there is some options, certifications to start if that is what you want. For what I wanted to do, that didn't quite exist. A lot of the local or territorial options for me did not reflect what I wanted to do. So you're encouraged to travel and experience if you are able to leave your home community. Other reasons why I hear young people have left community is also because they experience lateral violence or another form of violence. The rates of violence in these Arctic communities is very high, with limited supports and resources to support them and who they are. Another big reason is we're a pretty fast growing demographic in this time. And housing options are not available to us. So interesting how it says homelessness. I would say it's more of a houselessness issue. We already see a huge numbers of a lack of housing, and then also quality of housing that exists in Arctic communities. And originally when they said, I live in Whitehorse, and I would more call it an urban northern city, but we are seeing a lack of housing infrastructure to accommodate this growing population of urbanization here. The cost of housing as well is pretty insane. And the more north you go in these regions, the cost of living is higher. So for many young people, if you didn't leave to become educated and get a range of the opportunities to add to your experience and qualifications to live and thrive in your community, options are very limited. So it's also thinking and asking our communities to be very creative on how they support the development and capacity growing of young people who want to live or become educated and return to their communities. I think that's something that needs to be explored a lot more. And I'm speaking from experiences. I want to live in my home community. I had to create my own job that reflected what I really wanted to do and contribute to. And thinking very creatively on how that looks. And we're creating slowly jobs for other youth that really want to do the work that resonates with us. And it's mainly just creating space for other young people to have those experiences and to grow as a human and to give back in the ways that they see is really needed. So yeah, there's many different reasons that I see why youth leave communities and where there can be some possible avenues or to start the conversation on how we get young people to stay and thrive. And another big piece that because of this disruption of colonization and the pressure, we are seeing a decline within language retention and also culture and just knowledge of our region and the history even. So that is a big piece that is young people my age and younger, I think, is really feeling our responsibility to do. And it's very overwhelming when there aren't proper supports or the programming existed isn't reaching and is the young people who really want it, and being very inclusive of those who have left our respective regions. So it's a really interesting conversation that I think needs to really happen more.
Thank you, Alyssa. Just follow up with two issues. If I understand you right, when we will listen to Mika, there is in Lapland there is a demographic problem. They're getting fewer and fewer. From your point of view, there is really there's not the demographic problems, but there are welfare problems or living conditions problems. Is that the right way to understand it?
It's part of it. I think living conditions and helping us live and thrive in our communities is a huge reality that impacts some of us leaving or not staying if we do try to come back in that way. That is living conditions is part of it, affordability, and just there's big issues with food security. And then again, I'm speaking from an Indigenous perspective, is we see lots of lateral violence as well between our demographics and with our older demographics as well. And I think it sometimes is infused by the history that is there. And there was some big news with uncovered graves as well within the genocide that existed in this country as well. So we're now seeing a big presence of younger people asking us to think very differently on how we support the likelihood of many Arctic and especially Indigenous populations. But living conditions, I think, is really paramount. Like in Whitehorse, I shared, I was like, even though it's an urban city, the cost of living here and thriving as a human, and if you're single, so imagine for a young family. I'm a young mom and I'm trying to be a student as well. I'm pretty close to barely holding on, but you do what you can, because pursuit of education is important, because I want to be in a role that can potentially be in decision making or influence or policy development, because I come from a community and was raised with that and raised with those values, and really believe that our community and we benefit from that and thriving. And some opportunities are coming that I don't think reflect of what our younger generation is wanting to see in our community and prioritized. So I think we're wanting to think differently behind resource extraction and other lands of development. We see that relationship a little bit more to what previous ancestors did too. So I think that is also, there's a few pieces of it. Yeah.
Fine. Fine. We are now starting to get some questions from the audience. We take it after we have gone through the panels. A last issue from me in this time, Alyssa. From western part of Arctic, we are worrying about the very low birth rates. But the birth rates in your region is high. Why?
I see birth rates being high because many of us are very familiar with seeing young families. That's one of the reasons. I think that's very common. I get teased that my parents want to be grandparents very early. But another big piece that I see is sometimes a lack of proper sexual health education that is inclusive and updated. So that is a big piece with how communities are spread out and the options they have. And I think the mainstream information on how we share valuable, insightful details around sexual health education is really growing, but it is a lacked area. Another big piece is that we see sometimes a lack of safe, like, sex options available too. And then another big piece is just, again, commenting on the housing situations, close families, overcrowding. But I think one thing is, like, a lot of us are raised to see young families. I know I was. My parents had me when they were teenagers. And that is a very common reality we see in our communities, especially if they don't see other areas of their life. I know some folks want to be parents at very young ages, which is totally their decision. Some want to choose education, some want to choose to leave. So I think that is just a value that I also have grown up seeing, and it's very accepted and totally okay. I have many young, amazing parents within my families and friends and circles. So, but it's still very common. But many of us are also choosing to wait later. So it depends on who you talk to. But yeah.
Yes, thank you, Alyssa. We will come back to you after we have continued this dialogue. The last answer, you mentioned a lot about values, culture. This is also very important for these discussions. Well, then we go to the east again, to my Arctic region, and to Bodø, which is a fast-growing, ultra-modern second city in Norwegian Arctic. It is the European Union